All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to say, call hello, Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. That's all praise unto the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son. It's Brother Alazar Ben Lawyer. And today we want to do this lesson in concerns to the book of Ezekiel, the 28th chapter. A lot of brothers will go to Ezekiel 28:3, and the scripture says, "Thou art wiser than Daniel," and say that that's talking about Esau or the so-called white man. Through the spirit and power, of course, of Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, getting on us to compare precepts and do diligent historical research, we have discovered that that is in fact not true, and that is not the proper application of that scripture. So what we want to do is give the edification, of course, through the spirit on what the proper application of that scripture is and the historical gravity of that scripture, because there's a lot of deep history that goes into Ezekiel the 28th chapter that we should be well aware of, and it helps substantiate the validity and the accuracy of the Bible. It actually is giving you in-depth details of history that occurred hundreds of years after Ezekiel had the spirit on him to prophesy. So it's very important that we understand that. And it also, though it's not talking about Esau, contextually in the historical narrative that is given us, actually helps to prove that the white men are the Edomites according to the Bible. So Lord willing, we can illustrate all these points through the spirit. So without any further ado, where should we start at?
Let's just go right into Ezekiel 28, and I'm gonna just read the first and second verse first. This is Ezekiel 28:1. The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord power, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat.
We have Tyrus real quick. I want to put this into perspective when we're dealing with geography, because some people will believe there's no such thing as a king or a prince of Tyrus. Tyrus was a city of great maritime power headed by Hamitic people, Canaanites, Zidonians. You have Tyre and Zidon, sometimes called Tyrus or Sidon, all right, and or Phoenicia, as it's known in the Latinized as the Punic area. Okay, so just so y'all can understand where this is at geographically in modern day Lebanon, very close to our homeland. All right, go ahead.
Right, and also we just giving a little brief history on Tyrus and their line of kings. We dealt heavily with them, and we actually had a covenant, a brotherly covenant with them through King Solomon and Hiram, I believe. All right, so it tells you what this chapter is talking about, given the judgment to Prince Tyrus, or Prince and the king being the same person. All right, and for the people that say that this verse is about Satan, it's just a cut in the second verse to let you know it's the actual person. And it says, Son of man, say unto Prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man. So that's proven to you off top that it's not, this chapter ain't talking about Satan, contrary to the belief of Christianity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because you got guys that are Hebrew Israelites that'll say this is talking about Esau, and then you have people in the Christian church that'll say this is dealing with Satan or Lucifer, as they would, refer to him as. Both of those are totally inaccurate, and the history vividly details this prophecy and shows you how this prophecy came to pass and what it's all talking about. You know what I'm saying? The Holy Spirit is beautiful the way it gives us this understanding,
Right. And it says, yet thou art a man and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Now, dealing with the Prince of Tyrus, you can bring out that document.
Which one?
Josephus.
Okay, con. It's right here. And this is why we got to dig up into this history, man, because the scriptures deal with a plethora of history, man. And we plug it into the scriptures and it shows you, because you have certain guys, like I've heard this a million times dealing with these so-called conscious cats that come up and say the Bible is not a history book. Well, the Bible gives us prophecy that documents history. Here's further proof. This is the article here on Wikipedia about Etherball, but it has the actual scholastic sources cited. Okay, we don't just go off of what, because anybody can put anything on Wikipedia. It's about the sources that are cited upon the Wikipedia that are historically accurate and valid and authentic. Okay,
Right.
Ithabal the third. It says Ithabal the third was recorded by Josephus. Right, so it's a source that's also quoting another source as the king on the list of kings of Tyre, reigning from about 591 BCE to 573 BCE. At the time of the first fall of Jerusalem, going back to when we were conquered by the Babylonians, and therefore the subject of Ezekiel's cherub and Edom. So it's letting you know that this prophecy here in Ezekiel 28 is dealing with Ethabal, the king of Tyre, Ethabal the third in particular. Okay,
Right.
now the source quoted Josephus and also a book called Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon by Donald John Wiseman, okay, coming from the 27th page. All right, so that we understand that it's clearly historically documented that Ethabal III is the subject matter and the person that Ezekiel is referring to in this particular prophecy. Okay.
And that's who the judgment was given to, and that's who he was prophesying against. But it didn't come to pass in its fulfillment until
in full,
in full for like, I want to say 250 to 300 years, maybe.
All
right.
About the time of Alexander, which we're gonna go into, that's when it fully came to pass.
Right. All right. Now let's get verse 3, the key verse. It says, "Behold," this is Ezekiel 28:3. "Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret they can hide from thee." So people will take that and they'll say it's talking about Esau, but we're going to precept it up and let you know it is talking about who it says it's talking about.
That's right. The king of Tyrus, okay, the ruler of the land of Tyre, okay, this Hamitic man, not no white man.
Right. Okay. Now this is Zechariah chapter 9, verse 2. It says, "And Hamath also shall border thereby, Tyrus and Zidon, though it be very wise." All right. So that is essentially, and in essence, saying the same exact thing as Ezekiel 28:3. They were known as the very wise, or wiser than Daniel. All right, because of their opulence. They were a so-called sagacious people. And that knows, real quick, and it says, "There is no secret that they can hide from thee," because they were a maritime people and they were able to navigate to these unknown lands. Like the brother Alazar, we spoke about it last night, was not America an unknown land?
Yeah, that's right.
Right, the Americas.
And we know they
came first. Go ahead.
We know they came over here. We know they was the Olmecs that came over here, and the Olmecs was also known for being merchants. Okay, when it tells us in the book of Genesis, the 49th chapter, that our brethren, the tribe of Zebulun, will be bordered by Zidon, that's talking about how Guatemala meets the southern tip of Mexico, where the Olmecs land was. You know, they had a small land that separated the tribe of Issachar and the tribe of Zebulun. Also, they brought certain goods that were exclusive to America over there to the quote unquote old world. For example, you had Egyptian pharaohs and people in Egypt that was dug up and found cocaine in their system. How was cocaine found in the system of an Egyptian when cocaine is a plant that is, or the coca leaf plant is indigenous exclusively to the Americas? The reason that was so is because the Zidonians was coming to South America, just like they went to get the gold of Ophir, which is down there in Peru. They was bringing that Peruvian flake over. I'm talking about going way back, and they was giving it to the Egyptians, man. Okay, so they were, like this brother said, there was no secret that could be hid from them. They had a lot of knowledge when it dealt with navigation. There was a maritime merchant power. You understand what I'm saying? A superpower as far as dealing with selling things go. Okay, that's why they was called wiser than Daniel, and no thing could be hid from them.
Right, and then when you, like I said, when you go to Zechariah 9:2, it's saying Tyrus and Zidon, though it be very wise. So is Zechariah 9 talking about Esau too? No, this is talking about who is talking about precept upon precept within context. That's what we, as teachers and men of the Lord and prophets, breaking down the scriptures. Not only is it precept upon precept, but it's precept upon precept within context. All right. Yeah. Now back in Ezekiel 28, verse 4. "With thy wisdom and with thine understanding that thou hast gotten thee, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures, by thy great wisdom and by thy traffic hast thou increased thy riches, and thine heart is lifted up because of thy riches. Right? Now, real quick, I'm going to get Isaiah 23 and 8. It says, who have taken this counsel against Tyre, the crowning city, whose merchants are princes, whose traffickers are the honorable of the earth. Because that's how they got their riches in their glory, because they were doing business with all the other powerful nations on the earth. Right?
Yeah, kings of all these various nations they was dealing with. You know, that's why, like, for example, if a corporation wants to gets a government, that's what they want. They want government contract. When you get a contract with the government, you're gonna be paid, because that's that guaranteed money. You understand what I'm saying? So that's how the Zidonians was establishing themselves and their great merchant empire, so to speak.
Right. I want to make mention, a lot of these things could apply to Esau, but we gotta break it down on what it's actually talking about. And if you want to apply it to Esau, then you got to make mention of that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But back in verse 6, therefore, thus saith the Lord power, because thou hast set thine heart as the heart of a god, behold, therefore I will bring strangers upon thee, the terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of thy wisdom, and they shall defile thy brightness. They shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the seas. Right? So that's key word right there. Real quick, and I want to make mention, because when you read Ezekiel 26, it says that Nebuchadnezzar was going to play a part in basically afflicting Tyre, and that happened for the space of about 13 to 18 years. But they didn't fulfill these prophecies in its totality. They didn't burn it with fire. They didn't destroy them. They just had them under servitude when you do the history and when you put the precepts in line with it. So this is talking about Alexander, and we're going to prove it through the spirit, through history and precepts. Now, real quick, can you get that Jogeling Hans, the siege of Tyre? And I want to get the first two paragraphs on that, dealing with verse 8. They shall bring thee down to the pit, and thou shalt die the deaths of them that are slain in the midst of the sea. When you go through your history, all right, and you when you go through your history and you
talking about right here, it say the conclusion of the scene?
Yeah, that the conclusion of the siege, yeah.
Okay.
But nowhere in history after the time of Ezekiel in Zechariah 9 or in between did this happen until Alexander came on the scene. All right.
That's right.
But go ahead.
Alexander started testing the wall at various points. You want me to start up at the paragraph before it?
Nah, you could just do that one.
Okay. Alexander started testing the wall at various points with his rams until he made a small breach in the south end of the island. He then coordinated an attack across the breach with a bombardment from all sides by his navy. Alexander is said to have personally taken part in the attack on the city, fighting from the top of the siege tower. Once his troops forced their way into the city, they easily overtook the garrison and quickly captured the city. Those citizens that took shelter in the temple of Hercules, or Heracles rather, were pardoned by Alexander, including the king of Tyre. According to Quintus Curtis Rufus, 6,000 fighting men were killed within the city, and 2,000 Tyrians were crucified on the beach. The other, some 30,000 people, were sold into slavery, both because of the length of the siege and because the Tyrians had executed some captured sailors on the walls.
Right. So that's what it's talking about, of them dying the deaths of the seas, because it's a Mediterranean. It's right there on the coast, the Mediterranean coast.
That's
right. If you look on the maps, that's where Tyre was located, and that's where all the men were slain. And then when you look at other documents and sources, it says he destroyed the whole city. He burnt the whole, which we'll get into as the precepts come up. We'll get into more history on it. All right.
No.
But that's the die and the death of the seas right there. All right. Now back in Ezekiel 28, you got something to say?
No, go ahead.
All right. Back in Ezekiel 28, verse 9, it says, wilt thou yet say before him that slayeth thee, I am a God? but thou shalt be a man and no God in the hand of him that slayeth thee. Thou shalt die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of the strangers. And like this brother was speaking earlier when we were debriefing over this matter, the uncircumcised are dealing with the foreigners, basically not natives of the land over there.
Okay.
Because them Greeks, them Edomites, all right, they came in and they the ones that did that, all right? It says, by the hand of strangers, for I have spoken it, saith the Lord. Power. Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyrus, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, power, thou sealest up the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Now, some might say, why is verse 2 saying Prince of Tyrus? And then why is verse 12 saying King of Tyrus? It's still dealing with the same people, all right? Because all the word prince means is ruler. Now, I'm going to get some precepts on that real quick. This is 2 Samuel, verse 5. I'm going to read 2 to 3. It says, also in time past, when Saul was king over us, thou was he that led us out and brought us in Israel. And the Lord said to thee, thou shalt feed my people Israel, and thou shalt be a captain over Israel. So it's calling King David a captain. Verse 3. So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. So it's calling him a captain, and it's calling him a king. It's the same thing. I'm going to get one more. Revelations chapter 1, verse 5. Now, I want to make mention of something before I read this so we don't have to touch on all these scriptures. It's not Yahushua called the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, all right? But watch this. Revelations 1 and 5. And from Yahushua Mashiach, Jesus Christ, who is the faithful witness and the first begotten of the dead and the prince of the kings of the earth, unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. So he's referred to as a king, and he's referred to as a prince, all right?
He's also called what? The Prince of Peace, man.
Right, right.
So, it's all just dealing with, he's a noble ruler, like the brother was, going into and referencing.
Right. Now we're going to go to verse 13. You got your Fertile Crescent ready?
Come.
All right, I'm going to read it real quick. Ezekiel 28 and 13. Thou hast been in Salat, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. All right. Now that's talking about the whole land over there, that whole area of Israel is also known as the Fertile Crescent, and is also known as the Garden of Eden. All right. And the brother's going to bring out the information on it.
Yeah, as y'all see, this is the map right here, and it's showing you the Fertile Crescent. This is basically the garden, okay? It stretches from a little west of the River Nile to west of the River Tigris, okay? But specifically in between the Nile and the Euphrates is what the scriptures identify as Eden or the garden, really the garden, right? So real quick, I'm going to go and hit two quick scriptures to prove that. It's Genesis 13 and 10. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere. So it's well watered. That's why it's the Fertile Crescent, because it's well watered, right? Before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of Yahweh, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar, right? Now let's go to Genesis 15 and 18. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, and from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Okay, so from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates is the chosen land. Okay, that's the garden, all right, that it speaks about. So where Phoenicia is, or where what you would call Tyre and Zidon, is right here in Phoenicia, which is in the Fertile Crescent, same place with Israel, that little part of Egypt here, all the way into other parts of the Middle East. This is all the garden. Okay, so when it says that was in Eden, it's talking about their location in the Fertile Crescent. Okay.
God. And it's referring to it that was in the past tense, because as you keep reading the judgment, they're going to be kicked out of that land in which they were. The original and Hamites are not in that land. You got Arabs and Edomites over there, all right? So that's what that's talking about, referring to as a past tense.
Yeah,
right? But back in Ezekiel 28.
I say, yeah, they in Africa now. They're not there no more.
Right. And it says, Ezekiel 28:13, every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, the topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of the pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou was created.
Now that ain't talking nothing about, real quick, to these damn simple Christians. That has nothing to do with Lucifer had pipes and he could sing. He was such a great singer. This is talking about this people were a maritime power and they dealt with precious jewels. So they had these precious jewels and this is what they was dealing with and this is what they adorned themselves in. Right. That's all it's dealing with.
Con. Verse 14, thou art the anointed cherub that covereth. Now, we already went into what it means that was in the Garden of Eden. The cherub means guardian, and that's what it was referring to in the book of Genesis, guardian of Eden, right? And so when you deal with Tyre in the Phoenicians, they were a guardian unto the Garden of Eden because of their power, their military power, their strategic location, their fortified walls. So people will be hesitant and it would be hard to attack the land because of the location and position of Tyre. That's why Alexander was so mad, and it took him. He had to go through hell to seize Tyre. That's why he went on the killing spree once he got in there. But go ahead.
Yeah, that's factual. That's factual. Yeah, where they at is such a key location, and that's why it was part of the curse and the punishment that came upon them that they would be eradicated out of that location. Because that location right there on the Mediterranean, when we're dealing with a trade, that's a very powerful location, man. Okay, so. And them being there was a privilege that the Most High revoked because of their sin and their iniquity, which we're getting ready to find out what their iniquity was.
So that's what it means when it says, thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, because they were like a covering and protection to the whole Garden of Eden over there, all right? It says, thou was upon the holy mountain of God. And it's referring, the holy mountain meaning the fertile crest in the Garden of Eden, okay? And it's referring to as a past tense because they're about to get exiled out of that land. It says, thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. Okay, I didn't have nothing on that. I'm going to continue to go. Verse 15, it says, thou was perfect in thy ways from the day thou was created till iniquity was found in thee. So when it says thou was perfect in all thy ways, meaning they were successful at whatever they did, all right?
Yeah, they knew what they was doing. And now, is the white man perfect? Is Esau perfect? Was Esau at any point in his life perfect?
Right.
Explain that to me. So we know this ain't have nothing to do with Esau, man.
Right.
Okay? It says that he was the wicked go astray as soon as they be born, right? So that lets you know that this has nothing to do with Esau, who was never perfect at any point in their existence, that were always crooked. There was always the devil, right? Go ahead.
That's right. So it says, till iniquity was found in thee. Now let's see what this is stemming from, the prophecies in this judgment. We're going to go into Ezekiel 26:2. Did you cue those up or should I just read them?
I got them queued up, but you can read them either way.
Yeah, I'll just read it. This is Ezekiel 26:2, dealing with some of the iniquity. We're going to touch on a few things that the Lord had a problem with these guys doing concerning us. All right. Ezekiel 26:2. It says, son of man, because Tyrus have said against Jerusalem, aha, she is broken. That was the gate of the people. She is turned unto me. I shall be replenished. Now she is laid waste. Because when we got exiled out of our land, the Tyrians and the king of Tyrus, the Phoenicians, they tried to go assume our land as a trade route, making it easier for them to trade with other parts of the Middle East. All right. And that was one of the things that the Lord had a problem with. All right.
Yeah,
go ahead. You got something to say.
Especially Egypt. Their number one people that they wanted to establish and broaden their trade with was the Mizraimites, man, them Hamites that was down there in Egypt. Okay. Because they was, if you know anything about the Egyptians, you know that they were a very materialistic people. Okay. So they was having that traded in precious jewels, that gold that was coming over here to the Americas to retrieve, them drugs that was coming over even. And not only were they retrieving cocaine from the Americas, they was also retrieving tobacco from the Americas. So they was bringing all these various things over, and they wanted to expand that trade route with Egypt so they could get more money. And going through Jerusalem and having that established as a trading post for them would have been perfect. You see what I'm saying?
And Con, and so when I read this, we can go to the Matthew Henry commentary and just show how he makes the correlation with the Greeks being Edomites. Okay, and let's get more of the iniquity of Tyrus and Zidon and why these judgments and prophecies were against him. All right. This is Amos chapter 1, verse 9. It says, "Thus saith the Lord, for three transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom and remembered not the brotherly cub." I want to make mention of something real quick. It's not talking about the whole captivity. When you get into the Hebrew, it's talking about certain families and villages and clusters of us who were escaping or traveling. They would catch us and they would sell us to the Greeks. Right here it says Edom, but they were doing this in the time where Esau was coming into power as being the Greeks. All right, and we'll get the scriptures and history to prove it. All right, but you can bring that up if you want to, if you got something to say.
Yeah, Colin, let me bring this up because
and the brotherly covenant dealing with back to King Solomon and Hiram.
Come. Now, like we were saying, Ezekiel 28 again is not talking about Esau, but it has these major implications to identify Esau. Now, like he said, he just read that in Ezekiel 26. What does it say? It says Edom in Ezekiel 26?
No, Ezekiel 26 and 2, it just talks about how they tried to assume our land and use our land when we got exiled.
Okay.
But Amos 1 and 9 is saying that they delivered us up to Edom.
Okay. Now watch this. It says, "Concerning Gaza, a city of the Philistines, and now the metropolis of that country, the peculiar sin of the Philistines was carrying away captive the whole captivity, either of Israel or Judah." Right? Now I'm gonna skip down to their seizing those that fled to them for shelter when Sennacherib invaded Judah, and selling them to the Grecians in Joel 3, 4, and 6, or as here to the Edomites, letting you know that the Grecians are the Edomites, because prophecies say the exact same thing about the two, and especially in historical context, listing them with the Tyrians, the Zidonians, the Philistines, so on and so forth, letting you know that they're that the Edomites are the Greeks, that the Edomites went into Greece and assumed that identity. This scholar even proves that. Now I'm gonna jump down. It says, "Concerning Tyre, the famous city of wealth and strength, that it was a kingdom, it was itself a kingdom. The peculiar sin of Tyre is delivering up the whole captivity to Edom, that is selling to the Edomites those of Israel that fled to them for shelter or in any way fell into their hands, not caring what hardships they put upon them, so that they could but make gain of them to themselves. Herein they forgot the brotherly covenant, the league that was between Solomon and Hiram, the king of Tyre, which was intimate, that Hiram called Solomon his brother." Okay. So as we see, we had a very well-established brotherly covenant with the people of Tyre. Okay. What they did was sell us to the Edomites, or as identified in Joel 3 and 4 to 6, the Grecians. Proven every time that we go to that scripture, we go to Joel 3 to prove that we were sold to the Greeks. We say that this is dealing with the Edomites. This biblical scholar substantiates that these were Edomites that were in Greece that were buying us from the so-called Africans, the Hamites. Okay.
Con, that's beautiful. So these devils know, and through the Spirit, the Lord has revealed it unto us.
That's right.
Servants to prophets. All right. Now I'm gonna get Joel 3. Just for the sake of edification, this is Joel chapter 3. I'm gonna start at verse 4, dealing with more iniquity that has been found in Tyre and why he got judged, burned, and destroyed, killed, and exiled. And like the scriptures say, it was going to be destroyed at its prominence, at its height, and never come back to power, which would happen. Okay, let the Lord be true and every man a liar. It's not talking about Esau. Okay, so I want to make mention. I'm gonna just read it and then I'll elaborate a little bit. Joel 3 and 4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine, including you other Hamites, all right? Will ye render me a recompense? If ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head, because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly and pleasant things. Verse 6, the children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Now, this is actually talking about them coming to get us, or them selling us to the Edomites during roughly 13, 14, 1500s, okay? That's when the fulfillment of this came to pass, but it was also happening on a smaller scale, like we're going into in Amos and the rest of the scriptures that we brought out. It was happening on a smaller scale, okay? But go ahead, but it's also substantiating here, just like the that devil brought out that scholar, all right?
We get this quick precept because, like the brother said, the fulfillment of that prophecy came to pass during the transatlantic slave trade, but it was occurring prior to that. We was being sold by Hamitic so-called Africans unto white people, so-called white people, going all the way back, okay? And this is scriptural and historical proof. But real quick, this is the book of Ecclesiastes, the 1st chapter, 9th verse. The thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. So there's nothing new. So the Hamites been conspiring with the Edomites to sell us, man. They've been doing this going back to the ancient days, and we can see that illustrated in the book of Psalms, the 83rd chapter. There is a conspiracy that all these nations, in particular the Edomite, the Hamite, the Ishmaelite, and the Moabite, have against us as a people, man. Okay, so it comes to no surprise to see that the same thing they did to us during the transatlantic slave trade, they did going all the way back to the ancient days. Okay.
Con. Now I want to get the false security of the believer and elaborate more on their iniquity and breaking the brotherly covenant, and then we can get that blacks in ancient Greece, and I'm gonna go back to Ezekiel 28.
I should start at Tyree. Remember not the brotherly covenant.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Tyree, remember not the brotherly covenant that was struck by Hiram, king of Tyre, and David, king of Israel, and perpetuated by David's son Solomon, who succeeded him as Israel's king. Instead, Tyre attacked Israel, took many prisoners, and sold them as slaves to Edom, just as Gaza had done, which Gaza being the capital of the Philistines, right? The close blood bond between Israel and Tyre should have prevented Tyre from committing such atrocities against the brother, but it did not. As a result of their grievous sin, Amos prophesies judgment against Tyre, similar to that, that it doesn't give me the preview on the next page.
But you see, it's telling you that that's the iniquity found in Tyre. How when we got exiled and we were getting oppressed, they attacked us and they sold us to the Edomites, or as it tells you, the Grecians. But these scholars know what's up. Once again, it's saying that it's Edomites. All right. So for all you guys saying Esau ain't the white man, the scriptures are proving it. History are proving it. Scholars agree with it through the spirit. It's the truth. It is what it is. All right. If not, where and who is he? Okay.
Yeah. And damn, what was my point? I was just getting ready to make a point. The thing was, this is how grimy, and this is why we don't love the Hamitic people. These people want to sit here and, these guys in the conscious community want to say, we got to love all of our black people and da, da, da. Here's what happened. We loved the Zidonians, and we ran to the Zidonians for help when we was in trouble. And what happened? They took advantage of us and took us and sold us to the white man. That's why it's the hell with a goddamn Hamite, man. Can't y'all?
That's right.
It says we was looking for shelter. We was going through hell. And what was we going through hell at? Because other African people, black people, Cushites was coming and attacking us. So we ran to the Zidonian, and the Zidonian went and gave us to the white man. That's why it's the hell with every nation on this earth except the nation of Israel, period. We have no friends. We have no allies. History is... Right.
Now, I want to pull up that book real quick. Brothers can go research it. I just want to show you that this is another book that substantiates the so-called Africans selling us to the Greeks, the Greek Edomites. All right.
Yeah, it's called Blacks in the Ancient Greek and Roman World. Okay, and it talks about how a lot of us was coming over there through slavery and whatnot. You see what I'm saying? Going back all the way, 500, 600, 700 BC. You understand what I'm saying? Around the same time that we was getting sacked by the Babylonians, even potentially some of our brothers from the Northern Kingdom also getting sold into slavery there. But, particularly those of us getting sacked of the Southern Kingdom by the Babylonians and fleeing and then being captured by either the Philistines, which we never had a cool relationship with the Philistines, so that don't come to no surprise. They're Egyptians. But the Zidonians and the Philistines, of course, capturing us and selling us to these Greeks who were infiltrating Europe at the time, because, again, that's not even their original homeland. That's the Japhetic people of color's original homeland. But they were infiltrating Greece, and they were becoming the majority of Greece. They were taking Greece over. And what helped them take Greece over is the fact that they had us as slave workforce. Now, there's another piece of history which we're not going to get too much off into, but a lot of brothers will deal with the Spartans, and we'll go to the book of First Maccabees, the 12th chapter, when it deals with the Lacedaemonians, to attempt to substantiate that the Spartans of the movie 300 in that historical period were in fact Israelites. But that's not true. Going back to that time, the Israelites, we had not populated that place then, but it was actually a group of us that were slaves in Lacedaemonia that eventually became the majority demographic of Lacedaemonia that our brothers, the Maccabees, had actually written to by the time that they were on the scene. Okay, so we got to get our history and our timeline up to par and on point. Okay, there wasn't a plethora of Israelites that lived in Sparta during the time of the 300, but there was during the time of the Maccabees, because we were in slavery there, and through various things like wars and earthquakes that occurred, the majority of the men that were native to Sparta, or the Edomites, or really was Japhites that were in Sparta, had died off, and we became the majority of that place. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important that we go into this history and we put everything in its proper order and context through the Spirit and go precept upon precept. But that is just, I only brought that up to substantiate the fact that we had been getting sold into slavery to the Greeks by the Hamites. You want me to hit another one of these references or not?
No, I'm going to read Ezekiel 28, a couple chapters, and then you could bring out that source from that book about the siege and Tyre being burnt. But I'm going to read the scripture first. This is back in Ezekiel 28, verse 16. By the multitude of thy merchandise, they have filled the midst of thee with violence. Okay, and that's proven too, getting back on you dummies in Christianity. When was Satan selling any merchandise? All right.
Brother, he's selling souls, brother.
It says, and thou hast sinned. Therefore, I will cast thee as profane out of the mountain of the Most High. And that's why it says, when you read Zechariah 9, it talks about a bastard dwelling in Ashdod, because they got totally exiled from that land when Alexander came and conquested them. Right?
Yeah, and even further than that, like when you take a look at here's a video that I did called Ancient Gentrification, talking about how the Middle East and even parts of Europe was all filled with black people, whether it be us or whether it had been Hamites, and we all just got pushed into Africa. Like when you do the study on Carthage, which we know was Israelites, Hannibal's kingdom, the Zidonians was with us in Carthage. You see what I'm saying? And then we all just kind of got pushed further and further into the interiors of Africa, all the way to West Africa, Central Africa, so on and so forth. Most of the Hamites in Central Africa and whatnot, you see what I'm saying? But, we all kind of just got pushed over together by Esau and by Ishmael. You see what I'm saying?
God. And it says, and I will destroy thee, and I will destroy thee, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Thine heart was lifted up because of thy beauty. Thou hast corrupted thy wisdom by reason of thy brightness. I will cast thee to the ground. I will lay thee before kings that they may behold thee. Because when you read Zechariah 9, it talks about how the nations surrounding Tyre were going to be in fear after seeing it being destroyed. And that's why Alexander wanted to siege Tyre first, because he knew if he could siege Tyre first, at being the hardest place to siege, then the rest of the nations might fall in line and fall in order. Right.
Yeah, like basically making an example of them. You know, I'm gonna make an
Right.
example of them. They're the most powerful one. They're the one that's most revered. So if I make an example of them, everybody else gonna lay down. It was a good war strategy, which Alexander was known for his strategies in war. You know.
Verse 18, thou hast defiled thy sanctuaries by the multitude of thine iniquities, by the iniquity of thy traffic, namely traffic dealing with merchandise and business, namely selling us to the Grecians / Edomites. Okay, and it says, therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee, and it shall devour thee. Now look in your history, look through the scriptures. It was never burned and destroyed by fire, save with Alexander in roughly 330 circa. All right. Okay, it says, and I will bring thee to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all men that behold thee. Okay. Now, all they that know thee among the people shall be astonished at thee. Thou shalt be a terror, and never shalt thou be any more, because they did not rise back to power. I'm going to get the quick precept, and then we're going to go into this article real quick. Zechariah chapter 9, 3-4. So I'm going to say the same thing. And Tyrus did build herself a stronghold, the fortified city, right? And heaped up silver as the dust and fine gold as the mire of the streets, dealing with their wealth. Verse 4, behold, the Lord will cast her out, and he will smite her power in the sea, and she shall be devoured with fire. All right, that's plain. Now you can read the article.
All right, this is via a book entitled The Concise History of Islam. Okay, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to say these Arabs' names. Okay, but Lebanon was the homeland of the Phoenicians, a seafaring people that spread across the Mediterranean before the rise of Cyrus the Great. After 2 centuries of Persian rule, Macedonian ruler Alexander the Great attacked and burned Tyre, the most prominent Phoenician city. Throughout the subsequent centuries leading up to the recent times, the country became a part of numerous succeeding empires, with so on. But the point is that it says Alexander the Great attacked and burned Tyre. Okay, this is a historical fact. And it goes all the way back to the scriptures, because the Bible prophesied to us before this occurred that that city was going to be burned. And when Alexander came on the scene, he made good on the Most High's word, and he didn't even know it because he didn't have knowledge of the scriptures and the prophecies. But the Bible gives us history, and it gives us history so spiritually that it gives us history before it actually takes place in the form of what is called prophecy, to say before.
Right, Ak, and I just want to make mention of this real quick since you said something. Ezekiel 28 and Zechariah 9 are really both dealing with the judgment of the Mediterranean coast. All right. And we just went to the scriptures to prove it. And, you know, you brothers can do your due diligence and do the same. So the fulfillment and the judgment of that was Alexander coming in, conquesting what they call the Levant. Okay. And like the brother said, he didn't know anything about the scriptures. But I want to read this. The Lord judges nations by other nations. That's why in Ezekiel 25, it says that the Israelites, the elect, all right, they're going to take hold of Edom and bring Edom down. The Lord ain't going to come in. It says we're going to lay hand on Edom to bring Edom down. And let me get Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. So if the Lord is angry with a nation, he'll judge them by another nation. That's how the cookie crumbles. That's how the Lord operates, all right?
Yeah, so that's why we went into slavery at the hands of Esau. You know what I'm saying? And then Esau going to get punished, like the brother already pointed out, at our hand. We see plenty of prophecies on that.
So the exile, the burning, the being destroyed, the putting to death, that came to its total fulfillment with Alexander the Great, all right? Do your history is undeniable. And that's how the spirit is, to silence the naysayers, to gain to win over the gainsayers, and to feed the flock. All right. Now, real quick, let's get this Bible composition, page 345, to further prove the Greeks are Edomites and that Ezekiel 28 is the prophecy of Alexander. More scholastic information. You can start down at down the page when it begins at Tyre, and you can go from Tyre going down, keep going. You'll see that big book. There it is. Go from there to the situation with Alexander.
Okay. Yeah, this is the Bible exposition commentary, the prophets. Okay. Amos has moved from Damascus in the northeast to the Philistine cities in the southwest, and now he sets his sights straight north on Phoenicia and its major city, Tyre. During the reigns of David and Solomon, Israel had a warm relationship with the people of Tyre. Amos called it the brotherly covenant, suggesting that the covenant was more than a treaty but involved a friendly partnership that went deeper than politics. Even if the peoples of different nations don't agree in their religious practices or their political structures, they can still treat one another like fellow human beings. Tyre, however, committed the same sins as the Philistine cities by selling Jewish captives to the Edomites as slaves. When the prophet Ezekiel gave his funeral dirge celebrating the fall of Tyre, he mentioned this grievous sin. But Tyre's sin was
wait. So he's referring to Amos 1, 6 and 8, right? Let me read that real quick so we can understand what he just said, so brothers can have edification, right? Amos 1, he's quoting, he's referring to Amos 1, 6 and 8, right? It says, "Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive." The matter of fact, bro, pull it up on your screen, these last 2 scriptures. Pull up Amos 1 and pull up Ezekiel 27, okay? Because I want to show you how he's making correlation to the Greeks being Edomites, all right?
You want Amos 1 starting where?
1 and 6.
Okay, Amos 1 and 6. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4 I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom.
Right. Now he's referencing them selling us to Edom, right? Now go back to the article or the book.
He say, Tyre, however, committed the same sins as the Philistine cities by selling Jewish captives to the Edomites as slaves. When the prophet Ezekiel gave his funeral dirge, celebrating the fall of Tyre, he mentioned this grievous sin.
Right. So he's saying Ezekiel 27:13 is Ezekiel mentioning the same thing as Amos 1 and 6. Now let's see what that says.
Ezekiel 27?
Yeah, 27:13.
Okay. Ezekiel 27:13. Javan, Tubal, and Meshach, they were thy merchants. They traded the persons of men and vessels of brass in thy market.
Right. Now, so these are Greek. These are Greek. I'm sorry. Greek and medial cities. Right.
Now look at this. You see this Javan? What's the definition of Javan or Yavan or Yawan? Greece.
Greece.
So that's letting you know that even in the Old Testament, we see the documentation in prophetic language and in history that the Edomites had been infiltrating Europe and calling themselves and assuming the identities of these places in Europe, like Javan or Greece. What proves that is the direct correlation in prophetic language with Edom and with Greece. Okay? So it lets you, the scholars notice, and even some scholars let you know that Edom and Rome are equated. So it lets you know that these white people that are walking around calling themselves after these various European nations are Edomites. Okay? The descendants of Esau, the devil that the Bible speaks of.
Come. So just to let you brothers know, Amos 1 and 6 is the precept to that, or a precept to that is Ezekiel 27:13, letting you know that those as supposed Greeks that were selling us, that were trading our persons in Ezekiel 27:13 are the same Edomites as Amos 1 and 6. All right, but you can continue the article.
Come. But Tyre's sin was worse than that of Philistia, because Tyre was violating a long-standing compact that was based on friendship and mutual respect for humanity. Tyre was selling its friends as slaves. Judgment came in 332 BC when Alexander the Great wiped Tyre off the face of the earth and left it a place.
You cut out, so read it again from Judgment.
Judgment came in 332 BC when Alexander the Great wiped Tyre off the face of the earth and left it a place for drying nets.
That's right. You see that? So this is history, it's prophecy, substantiated by different scholars, and really mainly through the spirit and understanding, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, man. All right. So that's pretty much it. That's the breakdown. This is for edification and history, and proving that Esau is in fact the white people and the Greeks are Edomites. So Lord willing, brothers, was edified. You got something to say out?
Nah, man. Just Lord willing, again, like the brother said, brothers was edified, and we understand that he that was wiser than Daniel is dealing with the king of Tyre, a maritime power that exists in the Mediterranean, not Esau. But his trading and the sins that he committed was selling us to the Edomites, who began to assume the identity of the Greeks, going back to the book of Ezekiel.
Hey, with that, I ain't got nothing else. I'm going to say, call halal Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Until next time, shalom.
Shalom.